Welcome to another episode of the Taiwanology podcast. This is your host, Kwangyin Liu. We rarely talk about elections in other countries, but today we're going to make an exception. We're focusing on a topic that could have profound implications for Taiwan's future: the potential economic impact of a second term for Donald Trump as President of the United States. The reason why this warrants an episode is because of an article my colleague wrote a few weeks ago. He said it's likely that Taiwan will become a punching bag, largely because the strong trade performance on Taiwan's part. So thank you, Shuren, for the article. To set the stage, let's look at some recent data. In the first quarter of 2024, Taiwan's exports to the U.S. reached a record high of $24.6 billion, making 58% increase compared to the same period in 2023. Moreover, the share of Taiwan exports going to the U.S. has steadily risen from 12% in 2016 to 22.3% in the first quarter of this year. So that's nearly double. For the first time in 20 years, the U.S. became Taiwan's largest export market, surpassing China. However, if Trump comes back in November, Taiwan will face a U.S. president who sees trade deficits as the enemy. He has been floating ideas about increasing tariffs and taking back chip manufacturing. What would all this mean for Taiwan, and is there anything we could do about it? With us today to explore this issue is Dr. Daniel Liu, Liu Danian. He is the director of the Regional Development Study Center at the Chung-Hua Institute for Economic Research. I have known Dr. Liu for many years, and he has also served at the National Security Council during Ma Ying-jeou's government. I think that was around 2016. And Mr. Liu is an expert in trade policy and economic development. And he's here to help us understand what another Trump presidency could mean for Taiwan. Welcome, Dr. Liu.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming to our studio today. I think this is a very interesting time to be talking about the U.S. election and the possible impact for Taiwan. So, first of all, could you tell us why you think trade is so important for Taiwan's economy?
Okay, thank you. We can say more precisely that trade is of greater importance to small countries. Large nations such as the United States and China, because they have a very substantial domestic market that can absorb all the supply over there.
They have huge
production.
markets.
They have huge market. So they can meet their production can meet their supply through the internal demand. But for small countries such as Taiwan, because we have a limited domestic capacity, therefore we are so much on the export to export our product to the international arena.
Right.
Okay. As a result, we can see the fluctuation in the global economy have a more significant impact on the small countries than on the large countries. So this is why trade is so important to Taiwan. We can even say the trade is the growing engine for Taiwan economy.
Right.
If you see the last year, the Taiwanese economy, the growth rate for Taiwanese economy was only about 1.5%. 1.5%.
Oh, okay.
The major reason is our export decline.
Right.
Globally. That is a major reason. So how to pick up the export momentum for Taiwan to regain the economic growth is very, very important.
That's true. And if I remember correctly, I think over 90% of Taiwan's GDP is dependent on external trade.
Yeah, 70 to 80% or so.
Okay, yeah, right. So it means if global economy is bad, Taiwan's economy will be bad. So
exactly, yeah.
Right. But what you were saying about trade, I remember a time when people thought trade is a good thing, right? It's the global division of labor. Some countries are consumers, other countries are producers, and everyone is happy together so consumers can buy cheap goods. And my next question is, what's the status of free trade and free trade agreements around the world? It seems to be getting a really bad rap these days.
Okay, I think in the recent years, the biggest change in the international regional economic integration has been the shift in the United States position. Okay. Since President Trump took office in the year 2017, and the U.S. withdrew from the TPP.
And that was which year? The same year?
Yeah, the year 2017.
Okay.
When Trump took office, I think the third day of he took office officially.
Okay.
He signed the
dropped out of TPP.
The president of the CPTPP. The U.S. has no longer pursued the free trade agreements. The free trade agreement, the major focus for FTA is for market liberalization, how to reduce your tariff, how to liberalize your service market, and so on. So U.S. believe, the Trump believe, I should say, the Trump believe that such FTA have led to the loss of the manufacturing opportunities domestically, and that is harmful to the domestic economy. So the Biden administration, even when Biden ran the presidential campaign with Trump in the year 2020, the Biden criticized Trump's policy. But however, after Biden took office in the year 2020,
no change.
Not so much change.
Right.
So U.S. still believe, the FTA, is harmful to the U.S. economy.
What does FTA mean?
FTA is a free trade agreement. It's a bilateral agreement between two nations to further liberalize their trade regimes. That is the WTO plus, because we already have WTO for the multilateral to liberalize for the all WTO members. But for some countries can form their own FTAs. For example, CPTPP right now has 12 members. They have their deeper liberalization schedule and the scheme than the WTO require.
Right, yeah. I would say that free trade is good because it lowers the costs of doing international business for a lot of companies and a lot of consumers. But according to Trump, it's harming the labor market and job opportunities of U.S. workers. So I think we'll come back to that. But then before that, let's first zero in on Taiwan's situation. How much of Taiwan's economic growth over the past decades benefited from free trade agreements?
I should say it's a very tiny effect. Okay, the reason is because due to the political factors, Taiwan currently only signed 9 FTAs, 9 free trade agreements.
Okay, so that's not a lot.
Okay, so including ECOFAS with mainland China, most of the FTAs are with Taiwan's diplomatic allies. However, we know the countries which have official relationship with Taiwan are small and a limited trade relation with Taiwan. Such as some Central American countries.
Okay, I see.
So through the FTA to generate more trade effects is very limited.
Right.
As a result, we can see the contribution of FTA on Taiwan economy is tiny, I should say.
Right.
So you may ask why Taiwan, if the economic effect is so tiny, why Taiwan pursue the FTA? The reason is we have the political implication in order to consolidate our relation with those countries. Of course, we also want to sign FTAs with some our major trade partners. However, due to for example, we want to sign the FTA with the US. We want to join the CPTPP. We want to sign the FTA with the EU. However, due to the political factor, it's very difficult for Taiwan to have to make significant progress. I should say that.
Yeah, it's true. But I think over the past years, Taiwan's trade has performed very strongly, not because of any FTAs, but because of WTO and there's an agreement on tech goods. Right?
ITA.
The ITA,
yeah,
which
ITA
is
is duty free right now.
Right.
Okay. You can see our semiconductor, or I should say more broadly, our electronic industry is very strong. Our export also very strong. The major reason is our own competitiveness. I think another reason is the ITA, for the electronic product.
What does ITA stand
Information
for?
Technology Agreement. That mainly cover the duty free for the industry.
Right, like semiconductor chips and all electronic goods.
Most of the electronic product. As a result, you can see the general environment is very friendly to the Taiwan's export because it's duty free. Plus our own competitiveness that can make our electronic industry so famous around the world.
Yeah, that's why, and so that's how TSMC and other chip making companies are so well known and so competitive for the longest time.
Yeah, they are not affected by the FTA.
No, that's true. So they probably don't care that much.
Don't care about it.
So which industries in Taiwan would care about FTA.
Or I should say some traditional sectors, for example, petrochemical, machinery, textile, and so on, or the food industries. For example, you know, for the last couple of months, China, abandoned the preparation treatments of ECOFA. China cancel out some preparation treatments. Okay,
right.
Some Taiwanese industries were affected, mainly the machinery, textile, petrochemical, and so on. So those industries and the general environment is the tariff rate is relatively high around the world. So therefore, the FTA is much more important. If you have the FTA, you can duty free. But if you don't have FTA, you have to pay, relatively high tariffs.
Right. I think it probably because the textile industries or food,
machinery, petrochemical,
they are most likely protected industries in those countries. They want to protect those areas. So
I should say the agriculture is the most protected.
Yeah, and vulnerable.
Therefore. So the FTA, on that regard, FTA is very important. How to, through FTA, we can open up, those industries market.
Right.
For FTA partners, only for the FTA partners.
Right. But I think for Taiwan, that's also a very difficult route to pursue. Right. So, well, it seems like for Taiwan's competitiveness, all is great and well because we produce a lot of semiconductor chips. We should be safe. But I want to bring your attention to another new phenomenon, which is, I think, after the Trump's first term, starting 2017, U.S.-China trade war, there has been major moves to diversify trade away from China. And therefore, there's some analysts who are saying that Taiwan is one of the major beneficiaries from the U.S.-China trade war. And what's your assessment? Has Taiwan really benefited?
Okay, I should say regarding this issue, although the heavy tariff imposed by the U.S. on mainland China have led to many Taiwanese businesses in China, okay, as well as many foreign firms, in mainland China, to relocate to Taiwan. Of course, that is which has benefited Taiwan's economy for sure, because we can, we can attract more inflow of the foreign capital, okay?
Investment and jobs created.
Of course, but of course that is beneficial to Taiwan. But we also have to know that the U.S.-China trade confrontation rivalry have increased cross-strait tension directly or indirectly. Okay, as a result, in addition to we have so-called China plus one.
Could you explain what that is?
Okay, because some people say China is not safe, China is not reliable, China is too expensive, therefore we have to find another supply chain. If you want to serve your Chinese market, you have the Chinese supply chain. But in China, for China. However, not in China, not for China, we have to create another supply chain which can reduce the risk to reduce the dependency on mainland China.
Right.
But however, of course, I just mentioned we have the so-called China plus one strategy. But however, you can see in the recent years, because of the cross-strait, was not, cross-strait relation was in tension. We can also, some foreigner also mention about Taiwan plus one. Because cross-strait tension, as a result, because of U.S.-China rivalry, has led to some extent that the cross-strait relation also in tension. So Taiwan is not safe either.
Right, so in the customer's eyes.
Yeah, in the foreigner's eyes. Even if, when China launched the military exercise, on this island, we are, the Taiwanese people...
It's business as usual.
As usual, but however, for the foreigners' perspective, Taiwan is very risky because China launched the military exercise. As a result, they try to reduce their capacity in Taiwan.
As well.
Also, they also try to, maybe to create another supply chain other
in
than
Southeast
Taiwan.
Asia.
Yeah. So we so-called that Taiwan plus one. So we don't want this to happen, because Taiwan plus one is very harmful to Taiwan,
That's
because
true,
Taiwan, of course, Taiwan is very, robust in the manufacturing capabilities. However, if the political reason make foreigners to hesitate investing in Taiwan, of course, that's not right. As a result, we asked whether the U.S.-China rivalry benefit Taiwan. I should say some part. Of course, it's beneficial to Taiwan, but on the other part, that may create Taiwan some difficulties.
So I think the answer is yes and no.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. So we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we'll talk about the possible impact to Taiwan of Trump's second term. Welcome back to the Taiwanology podcast. This is your host, Liu Kwangyin. Our host today is Dr. Daniel Liu. He is the Director of Regional Development Study Center of Chung-Hua Institute for Economics Research. Previously, we were talking about how the U.S.-China trade war might have benefited Taiwan a little bit, but also because of the rising geopolitical tensions, there's a growing trend to diversify away not only from China, but from Taiwan. So Greater China Plus One is the new regime. But let's circle back to the topic of today's podcast, which is the U.S. elections. Let's talk about the American trade policy and industrial policy. It seems like the U.S. is now prioritizing reshoring over international trade. What will be likely the long-term impacts on Taiwan's economy?
Okay, I think the reshoring policy for the U.S., I should say the primary goal of the U.S. Trade policy is to protect the interests of the domestic workers. In the past, the U.S. believed the job opportunities were going overseas. For example, the Nike, the iPhone, the automobile are the major U.S. products, but all the products are making overseas.
Right.
As a result, the U.S. consider the employment jobs are losing because of the because of the trade.
Right, but it's because the U.S. companies want to lower production costs, right?
Of
so
course,
can you really blame these
That's
countries?
perfectly the International Division of Labor, as you mentioned at the beginning. So as a result, the Trump administration emphasized the American first. That include, the hire American workers, use American materials, and producing in the U.S. I think the investment of the TSMC also mentioned in Arizona.
Yeah.
That was also to reflect to the U.S. interests.
A recent example of reshoring.
Reshoring policy. So that because the U.S. policy is because of Trump, Trump's mail side is that the U.S. are losing jobs because of the flooding foreign exports. Why was that? Because the U.S. signed so many very bad FTAs.
Oh, okay. So that's his logic.
I mentioned, the Trump withdraw the third day of his
the TPP.
The TPP withdraw from the TPP. Okay, so Trump did not believe FTAs
in free trade,
free trade agreement. Biden basically followed this. So because when Biden took office, the CPTPP members such as Japan asked U.S. could you return back to the CPTPP, but the U.S. refused to do so because U.S. has to pursue his own agenda. Not for the market liberalization, but to create a fair trading system.
For the U.S.
For the U.S. interests, I should say. For the U.S. interests.
Right, but what would the impact be for on Taiwan?
On Taiwan, so for example, when we talk about the U.S. election, before Biden withdrew from the presidential race, Trump was leading. Okay, but right now when Harris replaced Biden as the Democrat candidate, I believe the general poll, revealed that the gap has been narrowed. Some poll even show that Harris has surprised Trump.
I think but it's too close.
It's too close to tell the result. So as a result, that is very important to Taiwan. We have to prepare, the different scenarios. Okay, if Harris is elected, what would Taiwan do? If Trump returned to the White House, what would we do? So we have to prepare well accordingly.
Yes. So could you give us analysis of both scenarios?
If Harris win the elections, we would say that basically she will follow Biden's policy. So the major rivalry for the U.S. is mainland China. So U.S. will continue to implement its trade restrictive policies on mainland China and also ask his alliance to follow. Okay, so that will not change. Okay, so however, if Trump is elected, of course he will still, consider China is the worst enemy for the U.S. for sure. However, he will also make some policies against other countries. Okay, not China. For example, Trump already mentioned if he is elected, he will impose 10% additional tariff to all the U.S. exports, including Taiwan.
Everyone, not just China.
Okay, because the Trump's philosophy is all the world owns U.S. So U.S., is the victim.
Okay. So we're the bad guys. Everyone else is the bad guy, and
so therefore
the victim.
The Trump, of course, will adopt more aggressive policy, against mainland China for sure. However, for other countries, Trump say, well, all the countries, he will impose all the, the tariff on all the imports.
Right.
That will incur the trade wars. Because if Trump imposed the additional tariff on the European Union, for example, I think the European Union will retaliate. So that is a trade war. That trade war is very bad for the global environment.
Why is that?
Trump philosophy is the U.S. is a victim. Therefore, he has to, to get his work done. So he has to use his philosophy to implement, his.
So let's suppose if Trump increases tariffs on all imports from all countries, would that mean that for U.S. consumers, whatever they buy will become more expensive?
Okay, already when Trump imposed additional tariff on mainland China, U.S. consumer already paid the price. But Trump believes, that China suffer more. Therefore, that is worth doing this.
That is okay. It's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it.
But
okay.
is that even true?
Yeah.
Do we know if it's true that China suffers more?
Of course, it's violate the economy, the basic economy. Say, well, you do something which hurt yourself, also not beneficial to others. That is not worth to do so. But however, Trump, his philosophy is he has to cure the unfair trade practices made by Chinese. Okay. But for Taiwan, Trump also mentioned about Taiwan because once the interview, last year Trump was interviewed by the Fox News. Also this year he mentioned twice. His remark was Taiwan take away the chip business from the United States. So if he is elected, he will test Taiwan's semiconductor industry. That is very serious. Okay. Because the Trump is totally, misunderstood. For example, why Trump tests Chinese product? Because Trump consider, Chinese product, Chinese
heavily subsidized
or employee already use the unfair trade practices and so on.
Forced labor
whatsoever. But for China semiconductor industry, we can say why Taiwan semiconductor industry is so successful. Taiwan semiconductor industry has not received government subsidy. No, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. Why is it so successful? Because it's based on his own competitiveness.
Research,
development, and the diligent and the very, very efficient
great
talent.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for U.S. to penalize Taiwan semiconductor industry. But however, Trump, just look at the result, not overlook the process.
Well, somebody should go and tell him that the results of higher tariffs on these chips would mean the American consumers will have to pay more.
Yeah. Also,
pay the price.
Trump also overlooked one factor. TSMC already committed to investing in the
Arizona.
US.
So what more do you want?
And you still complain about the Taiwan take away U.S. chips.
It's not making sense.
Doesn't make sense. However, Trump mentioned this twice.
Yeah, so
if he is elected, he may do something on this.
So, okay, it sounds all very doom and gloom, but is there anything Taiwan can do to, if we foresee this, the coming back of Trump?
Okay, so one thing I should say, you had mentioned at the beginning, Taiwan's export to the U.S. has increased. Okay, so I think if U.S. imposed the additional tariff on all the exports, I think that of course that is very, very harmful to the Taiwan's export, because we have a greater trade volume with the U.S. than before. Okay, so we have to, if Trump is elected, we have to convince Trump's administration. Well, the major export for the Taiwan to the U.S. The major export is semiconductor items, for example, chips. So our chips, the chips is for the U.S. for the further processing process. If you can get a cheaper chip, that is good for your business.
Yeah.
Not harmful. That will not hurt your business. That's the first one. The second one is, why Taiwan's semiconductor industry is so successful? Because our own efforts, we did not
receive any government subsidies.
Or we did not employ any kind of unfair trade practices. So that is not legitimate or fair if you impose any kind of a trade sanction or restrictions on Taiwan's semiconductor industry.
That's true. Yeah, you think you're hurting Taiwanese companies, but eventually you're hurting American consumers.
Yeah, but however, if Harris is elected, I don't see she will, focus on imposing more restriction on other countries, other than China. She will still focus on, how to, impose more trade restrictions on mainland China. However, the Biden or the Harris administration, as other allies of the U.S., have to follow U.S. steps to make sure they are, the U.S. still has the technology advantages.
Right, yeah. So I think so we have to pay close attention to the progression of the campaigns. And I remember the last question for Dr. Liu. You have been an advocate that Taiwan needs to join regional free trade agreements. Do you still believe that now?
So you can see the current situation. Apart from the United States, other countries are still actively pursuing free trade agreements, highlighting the importance of the FTA to the national economies. So therefore, I believe Taiwan cannot afford to be absent and must continue its effort in pursuing FTA in the international arena.
Yeah.
In particular, I think the first priority for Taiwan is how to join the CPTPP.
The comprehensive,
progressive, trans-Pacific partnership. At the beginning, CPTPP was called TPP, had 12 members, and the U.S. withdrew. So we still had 11 members. But this year, the UK, United Kingdom, joined the CPTPP. So right now, CPTPP has 12 members. So if we can join the CPTPP, it means we have 12 FTAs, with all the CPTPP members. That is also, China is also bidding for the membership of the CPTPP. So therefore, CPTPP will be another battleground for the Taiwan and the mainland China.
So Taiwan should try to join CPTPP.
Well, it's very difficult, but we have to try.
Yeah, we have to try.
We cannot give up.
That's true.
Sure.
And you just mentioned that the next round of meetings will take place in November.
November in Canada.
Yeah.
Canada is the hosting countries of the CPTPP.
Okay.
For the new application nations, for the CPTPP Commission meeting has to reach the consensus to set up the working committee for the new member, and then can follow the following negotiation process and so on. So that is very difficult because we have to get all the support from the CPT members. So China right now, in addition to pursuing its own membership of the CPTPP, also tries to block Taiwan, say, well, Taiwan is not a sovereign country, therefore Taiwan is not eligible to join the CPTPP and so on. But of course, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, we are a member of the WTO, so there's definitely a way. I think Taiwan should definitely take this momentum of international support and try to join.
In particular, I mentioned for some traditional sector, that's very important.
Yeah.
Because they face a very high tariff world, which is not very friendly to those industries.
That's true. So thank you for coming into the studio today, Dr. Liu. We have learned a lot from you, but we're not less worried. So let's hope for the best result.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Liu.
Okay, thank you.
That wraps up today's episode. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to leave a review or shoot us an email. To read more in-depth reports on how Taiwan is impacted by growing geopolitical tensions, check out Commonwealth English website. Our next episode will be available September 10th. This show is produced and edited by Weiru Wang. I'm your host, Liu Kwangyin. Follow Taiwanology wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.